Alex was a successful lawyer, known for his sharp mind and his ability to win even the most difficult cases. He was methodical, discerning, and very well spoken. He carried himself in the very fashion one might imagine an upstanding defender of the people would. Alex also enjoyed accolades and praise from the likes of regular working-class families, as well as politicians for his work as a defense attorney. He took cases he knew he could win based on the prevailing evidence. Alex didn't do halfway. Everything he committed to, he put his heart into. A true man of integrity. It began with a faint whisper that Alex heard while working late at night in his office. "Alex, you will lose," it said. He looked around, but the office was empty. He had said goodbye to his secretary over 2 hours ago, and even the cleaning company had made their rounds and exited the office. Given that his office and 2 others were the only offices on the floor, he was almost positive that everyone had left for the day. He tried to ignore it, but the voice persisted, night after night. Alex began to feel a cold presence in his office, especially near his desk. The whispers continued, suggesting that his career was doomed. "You will fail them all," they taunted. This frustrated Alex, as he would get up and look around almost every night, determined to find the source of the mischief. But he never saw or heard anything out of the ordinary when he stood up and walked around. Alex became obsessed with his cases, spending hours preparing and reviewing evidence. He started seeing ghostly figures in his office, their faces filled with accusation and pain. The whispers grew louder, taunting him with every step, especially after hours when very few people were even on the same floor of the office building. This was beginning to get under Alex's skin, and he became angry, even lashing out and yelling at whoever the hell was behind it to knock it off. It actually worked for about 2 days. Years ago, Alex had lost a high-profile case that resulted in an innocent person going to prison. The memory of that failure had always haunted him, but now it seemed to blend with his current fears, making him question his abilities and his sanity. He could still see the face of the woman as she turned and took one last long and heartbroken look at him before being taken away by the bailiff to her cell. Alex knew she was innocent. He had never fully forgiven himself for not prevailing on her behalf before the court. She had 2 children, both under the age of 10, and this made it even harder on him as custody was awarded to their grandmother. Desperate, Alex confided in his colleagues and even talked to a counselor whom he had befriended and who had an office in the same building complex, but no one believed him, especially about seeing the ghosts. They suggested he was just under stress and needed a break. After all, he would often spend 3 to 4 hours after each workday still in his office reviewing cases. Alex was a fighter and would never take a case he didn't have a fighting chance with. His family worried about his state of mind, urging him to take some time off. The whispers became more insistent. "You cannot escape your guilt, Alex. You failed her, Alex," they cried. Alex started seeing the ghostly figures more frequently, their spectral forms following him everywhere, dodging about with increasing speed, menacing and taunting him. The cold presence became unbearable, chilling him to the bone. His performance began to suffer. He became paranoid and jumpy, seeing ghostly figures in the shadows. His fighter attitude had succumbed to doubt and fear. He couldn't tell what was real and what was a figment of his tortured mind. He started doubting his sanity, wondering if he was truly losing his grip on reality. One night as he was alone in his office, the whispers became a roar. "Join us, Alex!" they demanded. He saw the ghost of the innocent woman he had failed in court, her face twisted in pain and sorrow. Alex dropped his tablet and screamed in horror, but no one heard him. Alex ran out of the office, desperate to escape the voice and the ghosts. He drove recklessly, tears streaming down his face. He parked crooked in a parking space just outside the door of a local bar, begging for it to stop. Alex really needed a drink tonight. He somewhat collected himself and dashed for the door, doing his best to play down his emotional state. Just as he was about to reach the sidewalk of the bar, a blinding light flooded his sight. He threw up his hands to block the light, but he could see nothing. He fell to the ground just short of the sidewalk as the whispers turned into a furious hiss. "You cannot escape us, Alex. You will pay for your deeds," they roared. Blinded by the light, disoriented, emotional and terrified, Alex tucked himself into the fetal position and covered his head with his hands as what felt like a flash storm came out of nowhere, pummeling him with wind and rain as the voices persisted, now in an angry fury. This was just too much for Alex. Blinded by light, whose source seemed limitless, drenched in rain with heavy winds and the relentless voices booming in his head, Alex screamed for help, hoping someone, anyone, would hear him and come to his rescue. But not only did no one come to his rescue, it seemed his voice was consumed into a vortex almost as soon as it escaped his mouth. What was happening? Why was all this happening, and when would it end? Alex was on the verge of a mental breakdown as the ghosts swirled around him, taunting. This went on for some time with no sign of reprieve for Alex. Suddenly, Alex jolted and sat up, looking around to get his bearings. He could see just fine. All was quiet except the faint sound of music playing from the jukebox inside the bar. Cars filled the parking area. The sky was clear and the ground was bone dry with no sign of any of the voices or ghosts. And yet, Alex was drenched, as though he had been caught alone in a raging thunderstorm. What had just happened? All hell had broken loose, and suddenly Alex finds himself waking up on the ground outside the bar, drenching wet and alone. Alex had a raging headache, but other than that, he was just fine. He just couldn't seem to make sense of what had happened that night, what exactly was taunting him, whether it would be back, or why it was happening. Alex may not have remembered much from that night, but he knew there was something evil lurking in the firm, something that fed on his fear and anguish about that woman who was sentenced on his watch. Alex decided to reach out to other lawyers in town and learned that several had experienced similar torment and had similar stories of torment and rage. They found strength in each other's stories and began to uncover the truth behind the whispers and the ghosts. It was a grueling process, but at least they had one another. When or even if the voices would return, none of the attorneys knew, but they had found respite in one another. And for now, that was enough to make it through. And you, dear friend, have you ever heard whispers in the silence of an empty room? Have you ever suffered taunting from guilt? Have you felt a cold presence that chills you to the bone? You're not alone in your fear. There's something out there, something evil that delights in tormenting the innocent. Don't let it win. Find others who believe you. Together you can fight the darkness. If you enjoyed this story, please subscribe and follow us for more. Join us on TikTok and YouTube for more Chilling Chronicles, if you dare.